Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our exciting channel. Doctor reveals the most overlooked medicine on Earth. Welcome everyone to a deep dive into one of the most fundamental yet often overlooked aspects of our health, light. Today we're exploring how light, particularly natural sunlight, profoundly impacts our bodies, right down to the cellular level, influencing everything from our energy production to our sleep and overall longevity. We'll uncover fascinating scientific breakthroughs that challenge our conventional understanding and offer simple yet powerful strategies to harness light for optimal well-being. Our journey begins with a groundbreaking study by Glenn Jeffrey and Robert Fosbury from University College London, published in Nature Scientific Reports. For a long time, we understood that light could penetrate the skin, maybe a few millimeters or centimeters. But these researchers demonstrated something far more profound. Sunlight, specifically certain wavelengths, can actually penetrate right through the human body and out the other side. Imagine that, light entering one side of your body and being measurable on the opposite side. This isn't visible light, though. What they discovered was that our bodies are most transparent to longer wavelengths, specifically in the infrared spectrum, with an optimal transparency around 850 nanometers. This is light we cannot see with our eyes, but it's incredibly powerful. To further investigate, they took subjects indoors and exposed them to LED panels emitting precisely this 850 nanometer infrared light. What they found in a randomized, placebo-controlled study, the gold standard of scientific evidence, was truly remarkable. This light had a measurable effect on the mitochondria within the cells of the retina in the eye, improving visual perception of color. But here's the kicker. Even when the subjects' heads were covered, preventing direct light exposure to their eyes, simply shining the light on another part of the body still produced the same improvements in retinal mitochondrial function. This phenomenon is known as the abscopal effect, where a localized treatment creates systemic effects elsewhere in the body. It suggests a fascinating internal communication network, potentially involving free-floating mitochondria in the bloodstream, allowing light's benefits to ripple throughout our entire system. The conclusion from this groundbreaking research is clear. Light, particularly infrared, is not merely superficial. It penetrates deep, activating cellular processes across the entire body in ways we are only just beginning to comprehend. So, what exactly is this light doing inside our cells? The primary target appears to be our mitochondria, often called the powerhouses of the cell. They're responsible for converting electrons into ATP, the energy currency of life, through a process called the electron transport chain. Think of it like a series of hydroelectric dams along a river, where falling water generates electricity. Similarly, as electrons fall through this chain, they generate ATP. The current theory is that infrared light makes this process significantly more efficient, like making the water or electrons flow with less resistance, allowing the turbines to turn more effectively. But there's another incredible piece to this puzzle: melatonin. We typically associate melatonin with sleep, produced by the pineal gland. However, it's also produced right there in the mitochondria, where it acts as an incredibly potent antioxidant, even more powerful than glutathione. Think of it as the cooling system for your internal engine, mopping up oxidative stress molecules. Intriguingly, research suggests that this very same infrared light can stimulate mitochondria to produce more melatonin. This is the mind-blowing revelation. The very light that penetrates deep into our bodies can directly enhance our cellular energy production and bolster our internal antioxidant defenses. Our conclusion here is that light is a master regulator, optimizing our cellular machinery and enhancing our built-in protective mechanisms.
Given these profound cellular effects, how can we best harness this power? While various red light therapy devices exist, which can be beneficial for those who are immobile or can't stood outside, the sun remains the ultimate and most accessible source. When the sun is highest in the sky, you're receiving the most intense infrared light which penetrates the atmosphere easily, unlike UV light, which requires a higher sun angle for vitamin D production. But here's a surprising natural amplifier: green spaces. Lush green leaves and grass are exquisitely reflective of infrared light, bouncing almost 90% of it back to you. Have you ever noticed how a leaf in bright sunlight remains cool to the touch? That's because it's reflecting much of the sun's infrared energy. So simply being surrounded by nature, a park, a forest, even a grassy backyard can significantly amplify your exposure to beneficial infrared light. The tangible benefits are undeniable. Consider the Green Heart Study, conducted in South Louisville, Kentucky. Researchers measured the HSCP levels, a blood test correlating with heart attack and stroke risk, in over 700 residents in an urban area. Then they planted 8,000 mature trees in just 4 square miles. 2 to 3 years later, they remeasured, finding a remarkable 13 to 20% average drop in HSCP levels without any other interventions like exercise programs or dietary changes. This reduction correlates to a 10 to 15% decrease in strokes and heart attacks. It confirms what many have instinctively felt: there's an undeniable connection between green spaces and improved health. Our conclusion for this section is that engaging with nature, especially green environments, offers a uniquely potent and accessible pathway to maximize the health benefits of natural light.
Beyond cellular repair and antioxidant production, light plays a pivotal role in regulating our circadian rhythm, our internal biological clock, which dictates our sleep-wake cycle. 2 hormones are key here: cortisol, which promotes wakefulness, and melatonin, which promotes sleep. For optimal sleep and overall health, you need a strong, clear spike of cortisol early in the day, ideally stimulated by bright morning light. This wakes up your body and sets your circadian rhythm, paving the way for a robust melatonin spike later in the evening. Without that initial strong light signal in the morning, your cortisol response can be weak and then remain mildly elevated throughout the day, interfering with your ability to produce melatonin and fall asleep soundly at night. Conversely, exposure to bright light, especially blue light at night, is detrimental. Our master clock, located in the brain, interprets evening light as a signal that it's still daytime, delaying melatonin production and shifting our circadian rhythm. This can lead to difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep. The impact of this disruption is profound. Studies have shown that blind individuals whose optic nerves are severed and therefore cannot detect light exhibit a 30% lower cancer rate, possibly due to their pineal gland being able to secrete full, uninterrupted amounts of melatonin every night. This hints at the immense protective power of consistent melatonin secretion. A large-scale study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, tracking 88,000 people with light sensors on their watches, revealed a critical pattern. Higher light exposure after midnight was associated with a higher chance of dying, while more light exposure between 4 p.m. and 11 p.m. was linked to lower mortality. This underscores the precise timing required for light exposure. Therefore, our conclusion is that managing our light exposure throughout the 24-hour cycle, bright light in the morning, darkness at night, is not just about sleep, but a fundamental pillar of our long-term health and longevity.
This precise timing of light becomes even more critical for those who work night shifts. Shift workers often face significant health challenges, including higher rates of cancer due to melatonin suppression and metabolic problems. When individuals work at night but revert to a daytime schedule on their days off, their bodies are in a constant state of circadian confusion. A fascinating study demonstrated a powerful intervention. Night shift workers were instructed to only eat during their daytime equivalent, essentially when they would normally be awake and eating, even if that meant they were sleeping during those hours, and never to eat during their actual night shift work. The results were astounding, reducing metabolic problems by 80 to 90%. The theory is that while your central brain clock adapts to the shift, your peripheral clocks, particularly in your digestive tract, remain largely tied to a daytime eating pattern. Eating at night sends a conflicting signal, throwing these internal clocks out of sync and driving metabolic dysfunction. The conclusion for this often overlooked group is that even in challenging work environments, strategic lifestyle choices, especially around eating, can significantly mitigate the severe health risks associated with a disrupted circadian rhythm. Unfortunately, our modern environment is largely designed to disconnect us from beneficial natural life. Energy efficiency standards, established in 2007 and refined in 2022, have driven the widespread adoption of LED bulbs. While LEDs are energy efficient in producing visible light, they often lack the infrared spectrum abundantly present in older incandescent or halogen bulbs. Much of the invisible light from incandescents, which engineers previously deemed wasteful energy, is precisely the beneficial infrared light we've been discussing. Coupled with low-E glass in homes, which filters out significant portions of the sun's spectrum, and lifestyles that keep us indoors 93% of the time, we are increasingly living in an environment of processed light. We go from our garages to our cars to underground offices and back home to artificial light, often for weeks or months without meaningful sun exposure.
However, the solution is remarkably simple and accessible. Get outside. Research shows that as little as 15 minutes of infrared light exposure can dramatically impact mitochondrial function. A study from Brazil, for instance, showed a significant difference in patient outcomes with just 15 minutes of 940 nanometer infrared light once a day. Just as there's a growing awareness about the difference between good whole foods and processed foods, we must recognize the distinction between good light, natural, full-spectrum sunlight rich in infrared, and processed light, the artificial, often incomplete light of our modern indoors. In closing, the scientific evidence is overwhelmingly clear. Light is not just for sight. It is a fundamental nutrient, a powerful regulator of our biology, impacting our cells, our energy, our sleep, and our long-term health. Reconnecting with the natural light-dark cycle, embracing the sun's infrared benefits, and making conscious choices about our indoor lighting and exposure times are not mere wellness trends, but essential practices for thriving in the 21st century.
So, do you understand now that light isn't just a source of illumination, but a free and powerful medicine that we often forget? So let's get outside more often and enjoy the sunshine.
Okay, everyone. See you in the next exciting Food and Flow video. Bye.